I'll never forget when I had all the systems in place to make teaching easier, but I self-sabotaged myself to where I still worked the same amount of hours as before. During this time in my life, I was scared that other teachers were going to judge me. As I've talked about in weeks past, I had seen them do it to other colleagues who were leaving at contract time and letting teaching be easy. I heard them say, must be nice, clearly she doesn't care about her students like I do, and etc. And I was scared that other teachers weren't going to like me and I was going to be judged for letting teaching be easy. I would fill my time with things that had to get done, like redoing my bulletin board for the 100th time or organizing that cabinet that I've been putting off for a while. And still, I would take all day to plan, even if I knew I could do it in 20 minutes. Now, it wasn't like I was consciously doing this. If anything, it was mostly subconscious. But the thing is, I had figured out the right things to make teaching easy, but I still felt exhausted. And it's because my subconscious was worried that I would be judged for no longer being the martyr teacher. And we talk about, or I wondered why systems aren't stopping you from leaving at contract time. And the reality was, it was because of a nervous system thing. So today we're going to be talking about why systems aren't really the reason that you're not leaving on time. It might be a nervous system thing. So with that being said, let's dive in. So let's talk about why teacher burnout isn't a time management problem like many are saying. So the first thing is when you are in chronic stress, when you are constantly being pulled in so many directions at once, and you're in constant survival mode, it's easy to not feel safe in a relaxed environment. It could be, you can be used to chaos so much that you're in flight or fight 24/7, that when things finally get easier, you don't feel safe about it. So your body is trying to keep you safe. So it's going to be subconsciously make things harder than it needs to be, like procrastination, putting things off, doing things at the last minute, making things take longer than they need to be, or being a perfectionist, or really focusing on things that couldn't wait till later, but they actually could. So, like I said, when you're in this flight or fight mode for 24/7, you're used to chaos all day, and it's really hard to go from that to a relaxed state. And when things feel calm, your body just doesn't feel safe. And so you're gonna subconsciously self-sabotage to feel safe in your environment. So I did this in my business recently. I found ways that make showing up on a weekly basis easier while being a full-time mom. But the reality is, I was so used to being go, go, go in previous seasons that I didn't feel safe letting it be this easy. Who am I to let this be this easy? Don't I really need to focus on this and make sure it's absolutely perfect? Would people really get value if I only showed up for an hour a day instead of working 8 hours every single day? These are the thoughts I was having, and this can be really hard to shift from constantly being stressed and on all the time to a relaxed state. So now that we talked about why burnout isn't a time management problem, it's a nervous system problem, let's talk about signs of a dysregulated nervous system. And again, I'm talking from an experience because not only did I experience this as a teacher and as somebody who is trying to conceive and struggling with fertility issues, but also as a business owner. So this is very recent and very new to me, or very recent for me, so I can speak from experience here. So let's talk about signs of a dysregulated nervous system. So the first thing is feeling behind no matter how much you do. You have a to-do list that has 10 things. No matter how far you get on it, you still feel behind. Like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. And you can't get enough time to work on it. The next thing is rest is uncomfortable or needs to be earned. You keep putting it off, like, after I do this, then I'll rest. And you keep pushing it farther and farther. You have to earn rest in order to actually rest instead of just giving yourself permission to be done. The next thing is overreacting to small things or having a short fuse. And the last thing, brain fog or disassociation at the end of the day. Okay, Addie wants to sit up. We're trying to keep his face somewhat off the social media, so I'm gonna face this way and we're gonna have to deal with it. Anyways, disassociating. I used to do that after work all the time. I would sit in my car, I would just completely space out. I felt like I was just exhausted all the time and I had extreme brain fog. And that's honestly what it can feel like when you're dysregulated and your nervous system needs a break. Now that we talked about signs of a dysregulated nervous system, let's talk about what to do about it. So the first thing, predictability, like systems and routines, are really good for our nervous system, and that's an overdrive. And I'm sharing more about this in coming weeks, so you can steal my morning classroom routine and end of day routine that I use as a teacher to help me get out the door faster. But when you have systems and routines, it can be really reassuring to your nervous system that predictability is around the bend and you don't have to constantly be on high alert for change. So coming up with some sort of routine or system can really help you. The next thing is fewer decisions by automating things. For me, this looked like implementing classroom jobs. When I had my students help me automate the classroom, my nervous system could take a break because it wasn't constantly trying to do everything or 10 things at once. And the next thing is to set boundaries. Now, we're going to be talking more about this in the coming weeks, but setting boundaries to protect your energy and your nervous system is really key here. And I'll be talking more about which boundaries to set in the coming weeks, but setting boundaries like leaving at contract time or leaving at a specific time, only working late a couple times a week, only showing up early a couple times a week, only saying yes to certain things that are aligned with you. Stuff like this can really help your nervous system because you're no longer working from a guilt and shame, and instead you're working out of alignment. And the next thing is to choose one system this week that removes a decision. So this could be your prep, your morning routine, your end of day routine, your classroom transitions from one activity to another. But how can you choose one system this week that'll help you regulate your nervous system so you can be ready to get out of burnout once and for all and to leave at contract time if you so choose? So, as a quick recap, we talked about why burnout isn't a time management problem. It might actually be a nervous system problem. And we talked about how being in a flight or fight mode for so long can make you so used to chaos and unpredictability that it doesn't feel relaxed or good when things are relaxed and easy. Then we talked about signs your nervous system is dysregulated, and then we talked about what to do about it. So, here are some next steps for you. If you liked this week's content, I definitely recommend you check out that New Teacher Next Door. The New Teacher Next Door is my new book about that overachiever teacher who is measuring her worth by the amount of work she does and whether or not she's burned out, and how she shows up, how much she shows up for her kids, to that teacher who shows up knowing she makes an impact every day and all of the systems and stories and milestones she made to get there. It blends personal stories with practical strategies, which I absolutely love. So make sure to go check that out. And as a thank you for joining and accessing that book, you will unlock a 3-part bonus training on showing up and leaving work on time. So make sure to check that out in the description below. If you want to learn more about my strategies to maximize your prep, you're that teacher who's wondering, where do I start when it comes to using my prep wisely? Make sure to check out my prep guide because it answers the top 10 strategies I have for that. If you want to take it a step further and you want a behind the scenes look at how I run my classroom, what systems do I have in place, and what strategies I'm using, make sure to check out the Present Teacher Circle because we go through different phases on different areas in your teaching life that you can transform to make teaching easier and from flow and ease instead of a dysregulated, chaotic state. That wraps up everything. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, remember, we are stronger together, and I will see you in the next one, Teacher Bestie. Bye!